Greetings, family. In some sad news coming from the continent of Africa, namely Zimbabwe, we have lost one of the giants in the African struggle for independence and liberation. Today, I come to my subscribers to say rest in power to a giant of a man, to an icon, a legend, a hero whose name will forever live on in the annals of history. In fact, in the words of Haile Selassie, posterity will honor our achievements, right? And so, regardless of what the naysayers may say today, those who are trying to appear to be fair and balanced and are trying to cast Robert Mugabe as a hero and a so called villain, we all know that history and posterity will honor our achievements. The work that our brother has done is manifest in the liberated people across the scope of the continent and the African diaspora. Robert Mugabe is one of the many African revolutionary freedom fighters who stood up against the tyranny of colonial oppression and who were not afraid to speak truth to power when our people needed leadership and inspiration. All right. Now, we all know that when Cecil Rhodes instigated the scramble for Africa, he had renamed several countries in Africa, and they actually carved Africa into countries and then proceeded to give names to these countries. And in particular, in Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe was known as Rhodesia. All right, so he named it after his own surname. It became Rhodesia, right? And so basically, Robert Mugabe was one of the people who could not tolerate oppression, and he stood up when many were too afraid to stand up. And he fought against the tyranny of oppression and actually fought to give Zimbabwe the name that it has today. All right, check out that song from Bob Marley named Zimbabwe. While he didn't call Mugabe's name in song, the song symbolized the struggle for freedom and liberation across the entire continent and the African diaspora. All right. Now, as I mentioned in a previous video, Zimbabwe and many other African nations were heavily subverted when they chose to fight for independence. All right. The colonial regimes left the country in shambles, removed much of the infrastructure and resources, and basically tried to portray these countries as being failed states by virtue of them separating from the colonial oppressor. So they tried to cast Zimbabwe and many other countries like Haiti as failed states who could not survive without the colonial oppressor in the control. All right. And so for many years, Zimbabwe has been attacked. They have been economically subverted. They were experiencing high levels of inflation. And so, family, I'm late for class right now, but I really had to communicate this to my subscribers that we've lost a giant of a man. And I'm offended by the many people who are trying to throw dirt on our brother's name, on our hero's name, posthumously. All right, many of these people would not have said that, or they would not have been as critical of Robert Mugabe to his face. All right, we need to respect the contributions of the elders who paved the way. Now, perhaps they had to do a more radical approach. They had to undertake a more radical approach because at that time they were under a radical oppression. All right, family, but I just would like to say rest in power to a giant. Robert Mugabe, his name will live on forever. All right. Now, many people like to focus on the shortcomings that they would like to portray these men as having. All right. But we need to resist the temptation to criticize those who have paved the way for us. All right. Now, we can find a shortcoming here and there with virtually any human being. All right, but how many of them would have stood up when it really counted? How many of them would have put their life on the line for the people who were being harshly oppressed, abused, murdered arbitrarily? All right, so rest in power. I'd like to find out what my subscribers think about all this. I'm just calling a spade a spade. Take it how you want to take it. Robert Mugabe inspired me. All right, family. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. One love.